Hello, my name is Andrew Tang, and I'm recording my semester research project, which is on risk management. So, the whole premise that I had behind this project was more related towards companies, especially startups, because I feel like a major reason why a lot of these startups fail is because they have poor risk management, right? A lot of these guys are new, just coming into the industry for the first time, so they're more focused on making their product work. But if they're not accounting for the risk associated with their product, a lot of them fail. And towards the end, we go over an example that I had, but I just thought it was cool because I was interested in the various startups. So that's why I did the research project. And the project will mostly go on to the specific risks and the types of risk management that currently exist. So the most interesting thing that I found was regulatory risk, which was we went over in the lecture. And I thought it was interesting because even though the people in legislation don't actually they're not technically a part of the industry, they have probably the most impact on a business. So I have an example there, which is Meta. They have a lot of issues with data protection and stuff like that. But I also have examples of emerging technologies such as AI in medicine. So a lot of people that are experimenting with AI, they're doing things such as what a radiologist would do, or like what an oncologist would do, detecting different cancers or diagnosing like various bone breakages. And I thought it was cool because even though these things are pretty successful and they work pretty well, they're not getting used in industry because of a lot of ethical concerns and because the legislation is just a little worried about that. So I thought that was pretty interesting. The next thing we have here is some of the types of development or some of the types of risk management identification tactics that companies are currently using. So they include the Scrum, which we've been doing throughout the semester, and then the test-driven development and feature-driven development, which we went over earlier in the semester. And basically, using one of these types of development life cycles is very beneficial because project managers will be able to catch errors earlier and more easily. Um, and like a lot of the time, there was a research report for the first article. They were saying that a lot of the time, project managers struggled with catching errors if they didn't do one of these types of methods, which ultimately resulted in not realizing the error until it was too late. So which ultimately costed them a lot more money and could have been avoided. Um, the next thing we have here is risk planning. So it's pretty similar to risk identification, but it's a little different. It's more specific. So we have some various strategies to avoid the errors or the damages, as well as like contingency plans. So some of them include like requirement clarification, technology selection, automated testing, code reviews, and disaster recovery, which is related to redundancy, but it's very important. I feel like a lot of startups, especially, struggle with disaster recovery because we don't really want to think about the disasters as we're starting out. We kind of want to just focus on making our product good. But if we don't look at the worst case scenario, then when it happens, if it does happen, it's ultimately going to result in failure a lot of the time. And if we go to our next section here, the evaluation, I kind of go over this a little more. So I give a specific example. The example I give is Magnolia, which was a website booking sharing app that was pretty popular a while ago, but it ultimately went out of business because during a routine maintenance, the drives were one of the drives was corrupted, but that corrupted drive was copied to all the other redundant drives. So that ultimately resulted in them losing all the data. And because it was a pretty competitive industry at the time, just the other competitor took over, and then Magnolia just went out of business. So um, this could have been avoided if they had better like if they had used more of these risk management concepts. But I think at the time it was just one guy running it from his own computer. So it wasn't like, you know, these things weren't really around back then either. So it just wasn't very successful, and it was pretty unfortunate. Then here I have a chart from Source One, which goes over the types of risk that companies are focusing on nowadays.